What's up, guys? It's Wes. So, not too long ago, I put out my ranked tier list video talking about some of my favorite digital painting softwares and kind of where they fall in my ranking system. And a lot of people brought up that I didn't really talk about Sketchbook Pro. And I replied to some people and said, hey, I didn't have a lot of experience with it, but coming off of my last video where I talked about kind of being in an artistic rut, I thought, what perfect antidote for that than shaking things up, trying something brand new, and actually taking a look at a program that I didn't have a lot of experience with. So let's take a quick look at my first time using Sketchbook Pro. So here we are in Sketchbook Pro. So before we get kind of too far into my thoughts on the program itself, I wanted to talk a little bit about this piece right here. And the best way I can describe this is you are going to see somebody working through art frustration in real time. It's, yeah. So if you watched my last video about the artistic learning curve, I talked about kind of being in a slump and stuff. And first of all, thank everybody for the amazing advice. There was like technique advice, there was composition advice, there was even like who to study and where to study. I mean, incredible stuff. So if you're kind of in a rut as well and you haven't taken a look at that video, please do. Hopefully you're going to get something out of it, but then read the comments. Those comments have been incredible. So a huge thanks to everybody. I'm reading every single one and taking it to heart. In fact, I'm like making, I talked about this on social media, but I'm making a Google document and I'm literally keeping notes. It's almost like this art manifesto, and I'm putting stuff together to really study and kind of push forward stuff I'm doing wrong, stuff I'm doing right. And this, oddly enough, this was only an hour and a half kind of quick sketch thing. I had a reference from Pexels, I think. And I was just making a thing, and I kind of went through all of the emotions during it of making a thing, and it turned out okay, I guess. And then I got bored, and then I did this thing to where, the colors weren't interesting and the textures weren't interesting. So I just after I get some stuff in and I'm not liking it, I just make a multiply layer and just start going haywire and making random marks with random colors. I didn't care. And then it's funny because I kind of looked at it afterwards and I was like, actually, this is usable. Like I can use this to kind of start developing the picture more. And then also throughout some of the things, I've been taking a few Domestika courses. I've been looking at like New Masters Academy. There's a lot of people, especially like Bill Perkins, which somebody recommended on that video, who's a senior Disney visual director, and dude's a genius. Reading some of his stuff, and I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to not do what I do and, I don't know, like activate my brain in a different way. And I think that's what the multiply layer stuff did. And then going back and resetting the forms, I think I go back to grayscale and reset the forms and then kind of go and do the multiply trick again, add some color wash. And overall, I end up with something it's fine. I don't think it's great, but it would be a great kind of starting point. Like this would be a good concept to give an art director or have on a back burner to be like, okay, I can turn this into a real piece given another 10 hours of rendering and, painting and edge work and stuff. And that's sort of what this was. This was more of an exercise on figuring out where things were in Sketchbook Pro and what the brushes did, what they felt like, how do they integrate with each other, how do the layer blending modes work? Because there's some layer blending modes in Sketchbook Pro that don't really exist, or they do exist, but they're called something else. Like there's actually a glow layer. You can just add it the same way you would add overlay or color or multiply. I think it's just called glow, and it works as kind of like the color dodge layer, And there's also, and we'll get to the brushes and stuff in a minute, but there's dedicated categories the same way there would be in like Krita based on what your use case is. But primarily as a piece, this one's fine. I did start to kind of saturate more colors and start to look at more visual interest for its own sake, rather than having the knight try to look like a knight. You know, because I think we get that idea. I think we get the idea that, okay, here's a guy in armor, and he's in front of a castle, and there's some trees. That's it. That's the whole gimmick. So now what? You know, and I think the now what is going to be where a lot of growth happens, is how do I make this a better picture rather than a study painting of a reference photo. So yeah, a lot kind of going on mentally, and you can literally see me work out frustration in real time. So it starts off not great, gets a little better, goes back to not great, gets a little better, kind of ebb and flow. And all this happens in an hour and a half. You know, I think this was across 2 sessions. Started off really late at night one time, and then I re-upped it the next day after I slept on it a little bit. And I think that's when I did my multiply layer trick, just to see if it would work, and it kind of did. So this is something I might take forward into other painting programs, or just the way I work, my workflow anyway, which is cool. But let's talk about Sketchbook Pro as a program. And I remember using Sketchbook Pro for the first time, probably 2019. I remember it because it was free. Sketchbook Pro used to be completely free, but you had to buy additional brush categories. I believe I'm remembering that right. If I'm misremembering, please let me know. But I do know that you could get it from the Autodesk site completely free. It was freeware, basically. I think at that point they didn't abandon it, but it was not their priority. I mean, because Autodesk does computer-aided drafting. So a lot of like 3D CAD type stuff, like architecture. That's where Autodesk really kind of makes their money. Architectural visual design and development. So having Sketchbook Pro was sort of this like afterthought, I guess. But now I went and I bought it. Now you pay $24.99. It comes with all the brushes. They have bonus like free brush packs and stuff. I got all that stuff. So yeah, I went on the Windows Store and I just bought it. $24.99, perpetual license. You own it forever, which automatically is a thumbs up in my book. I'm less and less keen on subscription-based stuff. So the fact that you get a full course meal of an art program, illustration, and kind of drafting program for $24 is a great deal just by itself. So thumbs up there. And the workflow is actually really interesting. I like that. I remember it being minimalistic when I used it, 5-6 years ago. And it still remains that way. And I appreciate that. It reminds me of kind of the Procreate, kind of the mobile way of doing things. I'm pretty sure this does have a mobile version as well, but I'm using the desktop version here. And I like the fact that it keeps that minimal kind of MO and the workflow and the kind of the document layout is pretty sleek, I think is a good word for it. It has what you need, and it's in an easy to find place, but it's not in your face, And I do appreciate that. It lets me just focus on the painting, which you could see I could easily go through my struggling artist phases within the hour and a half. And, Sketchbook wasn't causing any of it. So that's a good thing, right? It was that's all on me. But I really like the fact, so here's one very specific Sketchbook Pro thing that I really, really like. I like that you can make your own brush category and then pin that brush category to the brush toolbar that you can see kind of on that left-hand side, the taller, more narrow one. Yeah, I think that's really cool. But then you can also bring up the bigger brush menu that has all of them, and kind of pick what you need from there, whether you need an eraser or kind of an airbrush or whatever. It's all there. And I also want to give a big thumbs up to the categories. The categories make a lot of sense. You have your artistic stuff, you have your traditional stuff, you have your sketching, you have your acrylics, you have, I think my favorite ones, of course, are the synthetic brush tools, so synthetic oils. Being a painter at heart, that's my wheelhouse. So really like those. The coarse angular brush seemed to be my favorite. And they also have some like concept art marker. The markers are really cool, like the Draftsman stuff. where you're just basically doing, architectural visualization. That's usually what it's for. But it works great as like concept art, markers and stuff. It's really, really neat. So that's kind of an angle that you don't see from a lot of other paint programs, which are kind of leaning more into the wet on wet paint and impasto and making this very traditional look. Sketchbook Pro literally exists as kind of that drafting tool, which I dig it. I didn't use it for this one, but I know they have the guides and the rulers and the perspective grids and all that stuff. I could see this being really helpful for background design or making like a 3-point perspective cityscape or something. I think it'd be really easy to do and pretty fulfilling to do in Sketchbook Pro. I mean, I've been making brushes for a long, long time. I think this is going on my 5th year as a quote unquote professional brush maker. That's how I make a lot of my money, is I actually make custom brush packs and sell them and, do stuff for students. And so I did kind of feel like, I had everything I needed in Sketchbook Pro, but I need to dig into the brush maker. That's a thing I haven't dug into yet. So I'm interested to see what that utilizes, and maybe I can bring in some of my brush stylings and see how they work within Sketchbook Pro. This right here is just using everything default. I didn't, I downloaded the extra brushes, but I didn't make any. I didn't go in and tweak brushes. I just used the stuff out of the box. So this is what it looks like. So, this is what you're going to get whenever you download Sketchbook Pro. And I had everything I needed. And it was easy to find. It was easy to use. It didn't change the way I think about art. It's not going to be, I'm not going to throw everything else in a deep hole and bury it and only use Sketchbook Pro. But it's good. This is very, very good. And it's functional and it's fast, which is really handy. Very, very quick. And I think, I recommend it. I do recommend it. And I think it's a great place if you want to get something that's low cost and can maybe shake up your workflow a little bit. I think Sketchbook Pro is a solid choice. Like I said, I haven't used the mobile version, but if they're carrying over a lot of this stuff from the mobile version, I would recommend the mobile version as well. It's a good little program, and I think it has everything you need to make professional grade stuff for sure. But I do think it might be slightly limited compared to something like a Krita or, of course, like a Clip Studio or a Photoshop. But I think this is half the price of Clip Studio. So that sounds about right. Like in my mind, that seems right. So overall, I liked my experience with Sketchbook Pro. I think I'm going to use it more. I'm going to maybe integrate different brushes and stuff like that into it, kind of see what it can do there. Really dig into those perspective grids. I think that'll be really interesting. I think this will do it really, really well and pretty easily as well. And even little things, like I like the fact that the fill tool, like the fill bucket, is also the gradient bucket. I think that's a smart thing to do. It's something I never would have thought of really, because normally your fill bucket and your gradient tool are separate. But having it in the same category kind of makes sense, because you're using the same action, because either you want a gradient or you want a solid color. So to me, it makes sense to have them. So it's that type of stuff. It's smart. It's smartly put together. And that's a really cool thing. And, not a lot of wasted mouse clicks, not a lot of stuff hidden behind a bunch of menus. It's kind of all there. It's all there at your fingertips. I think that's really cool. But that was my time with this. Hope you like the painting. I kind of like the painting. But I can tell that fire, the charcoal is starting to burn, where I'm really in learning mode again. And I'm like, okay, now it's time to level up, which is an awesome feeling. I also want to rush it, even though I shouldn't. I need to savor these moments of okay, full mental capacity. Let's figure this out. Let's level up together. I need to really love being in that space, which I do, but it's honestly been a little bit since I've been in that space. So we're going to do some more fun stuff. We're going to do some more fundamental studies. We're going to do things like that. But yeah, overall, just on the Sketchbook Pro side of things, I recommend it. It's a great program. The pencils work great. Everything's really responsive. Has what I needed. And hey, I learned that multiply trick for texture and stuff. So I'm excited to use that in other painting softwares and kind of see what happens. So big shout out to Sketchbook Pro for opening that door. You know what I mean? Different programs, I say this before and I stand by it. Different programs make you solve problems in different ways. So there's always a benefit to trying something new. And Sketchbook Pro is definitely something, if you haven't, that I think you should try. You might surprise yourself. But that's my time. Hope you all are doing well. We will see you all very soon. Hey, if you've used Sketchbook for a long time, let me know. Am I missing anything? Is there any cool thing in it that you really think, oh man, if you haven't used this, you really need to use it? Because I think learning new programs is just a lot of fun anyway. But yeah, that's it for me. You guys take care, and we will talk to you next time. Peace.